Hello and welcome to yet another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. If you're watching this live video, that's what you're watching, a live video, not a podcast. It is a live video where I will talk about podcasting, and you can get the whole podcast, like just the audio bit of just the thing that's important, at podcastpontifications.com. This morning, voting day, midterms in America, I do not want to talk about voting. You're welcome. You could use a break from that, couldn't you? Woo! Instead, I want to talk about something that I read earlier today that gets into the just launch it mentality, which I've covered more than once here on Podcast Pontifications. But this was sparked by something I read from an insider at Google who was clearly disillusioned with Google's model, business model, if you will, internal rewarding employees that just launch apps that are terrible, that either have no market fit, that are buggy, there are problems. I guess this just plagues internally with Google, at least according to this one person. I have zero research, but it got me thinking. I wonder if we have a similar situation happening in podcasting where there is no penalty for doing things badly, putting out a rotten show, putting out an ill-formed concept, having bad audio. There's not really a penalty to those things. And I started thinking about that. And I wonder if that's worthy of a conversation. Now, fair warning, early on in the conversation here. This may come off a little old man rambly, and I get it. At least I wear the hat proudly. But I'm going to try to not. I'm going to try and really focus down on what this actually means. It's going to be a little personal. And maybe you can relate to the issue. And because here's the deal. You're familiar with Sturgeons Law. And if you are not, I will tell you what Sturgeons Law says, and that is that 90% of everything is crap. Now, clearly there's no scientific basis for that, but that means that most, like 90%, of anything that's created out there is not going to be created well. And podcasting is no different than that. Podcasting doesn't get a magic pass from any of that stuff. Also, while on top of that, I don't think that a deluge of bad content is going to break podcasting, nor do I think that the current deluge of bad content significantly hinders podcasting's adoption. If the internet has shown us one thing, it's that crap can find its own way, and more importantly, there are really smart people like Google who have figured out a nice business model to where they can help identify and let the cream rise to the top. Okay, so I'm not making this about how do we keep bad content away. That's not important. That's a fool's errand. Anytime people are allowed to create content, you're going to create a variety of a wide spectrum of types of content. No, that's not what I want to get at. That's not what I think about. Because to me, while I think the podcasting ecosystem is going to be fine, I'm more worried about the supporting nature that we have of, oh, you've made something, let's just launch it. That's fine. Again, I have no problem with that. And we have a variety of podcast hosting companies, from the old stalwarts who've been around since the beginning, hi Blueberry, hi Libsyn, to the brand new people out there, hi Anchor. And all of them are always very encouraging. We make it very, very easy to start. None of them make it very, very easy to make good. Much I ranted about that on Friday. So I'm not even going that direction. Where I want to go with the conversation, and what my brain goes to is, how does this impact me? How does this impact me when I know people who are making poor content, making content that just doesn't work? Do I have an obligation to say something? Doesn't that just make me kind of an asshole? So clearly that's not the answer. We have ratings and reviews. Sure, you can rate something. But, honestly, most ratings are 5 stars. So we don't have a good ecosystem. But again, let's assume that the market self-corrects. Let's assume that we will fix this in the future. Somebody is out there figuring out a way to collect information. Again, that's the whole bit. I'm not worried about good for you, not good for me type stuff. I'm thinking about me And I'm thinking about you, because if you're watching this, you must be interested in the podcasting space, a fan, an aficionado, perhaps even a person with a podcast, or like me, somebody with a podcast who produces podcasts. Do I have an obligation when something is presented to me that is terrible to do something about it? And I know what something is, again, without just being a jerk and telling the person why that's a terrible idea, that's a terrible concept, it didn't really work. How do I do that? It's got to be more than just being a harsh critic. So I don't really have a good answer. This is like I said, this is rambling. We don't know where it's going to go. But I struggle internally with the trying to be a voice, not necessarily against, but certainly counter to, which I guess you could say is synonymous terms, the idea that every idea should be out there in the airways. Because I don't think that's the case. And that anybody can do this. I think anybody can do this if they want to do this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they should do this. Everybody should write a book. Seriously. I've read a lot of really bad books in my time. But this time it's a lot different for me because now this is the industry which I am in. And I guess I have been for the longest time, but now I'm deeply into it since it's the only thing that I do is work in podcasting. So do I have a responsibility, and people like me have a responsibility to try and combat the everything is wonderful, just keep going mentality and really push for good quality content? Or can we not do that? How do other places deal with that? Is it something you let the market bear things out? Yeah, I think the market will bear itself out. And again, I'm not worried about the market. I'm worried about those of us on the inside. How do we not be dicks, but say, good, honest answers? I don't really know. All I know is that, and I guess maybe for me, and I hate to make this show all about me. I mean, it's me. I'm behind the microphone talking to it. But I'm in an interesting position. Obviously with my clients, about 20 or so clients that I work with, I can work really hard to make sure that the audio quality, the content is as good as it possibly can be with my clients' restrictions in mind. I get it. So I can do that. So I am doing that. But I'm also one of